Welcome to this session of the Cloud Exchange. My guest is Ben Cushing, the Chief Architect for Health and Life Sciences at Red Hat. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Happy to be here.
As we've been hearing all day about healthcare, we're going to talk a little bit more about the way healthcare and healthcare agencies are really using cloud services. And I'm going to start with the hybrid cloud. I think that's a common area that a lot of not just healthcare agencies, but all federal agencies are really going down this path. They're in this journey where they have one foot in cloud services, whether it's platform or software or infrastructure as a service, and they also have one foot in some data centers. Let's talk there about hybrid cloud journey. What are you seeing from your clients? What are you seeing some of those trends that stand out to you?
We can safely say that all agencies are engaged in some form of hybrid cloud right now, and that trend is going to hold for the foreseeable future. I think agencies, as they go through their cloud, journey, their migrations and everything else, they reach the conclusion eventually that they can't put everything in the cloud. They need to have some remaining footprint on-prem, and then also that they probably aren't going to just all be going into one cloud. That there's multiple public clouds that they're going to have to embrace, and there's challenges with that, right? There's added complexity. There's a lot to be gained for sure. I think one of the things I've been hearing a lot about is NIH's BioWolf. It's one of the largest high performance computing centers in the world, and there's just a physical limitation there. Like BioWolf is on campus at NIH, and if you've looked at the real estate in Bethesda, it's not good. They can't really expand all that well. They've got also like physical restraints of like how much electricity they can get their hands on, how much cooling, things of that nature. And there's only so much shrinking you can do of the actual hardware before you really need to branch out. And so NIH has been trying to figure out how to expand that capability while maintaining control of the environment. And so I expect to see a lot of the HPC world moving more into cloud computing, just because all of the public clouds really have the capability to meet those demands fairly well. But it's very likely that jobs, like scheduled jobs, are going to move between the on-prem centers and the cloud computing, and it's going to create that sort of that hybrid cloud computing capability across both of those centers. And I would say that a lot of the software as a service offerings that are coming, that generally are available in cloud services, are being fully embraced by agencies. So HHS, VA, really leaning into those services for good reasons. But in order for them to function properly within the agencies themselves, they have to connect them to the existing services, and a lot of those are still hosted on-prem. So there's a lot of connective work and interfaces that have to be produced to create the sort of seamlessness of services and care models for let's say CDC, FDA. They in order to embrace all those services, they have to really maintain their capability on-prem. So and then there's this other adjustment that's going on with cloud, where agencies have moved a lot of data up into the cloud and seen sticker shock. Like there's a lot of costs associated with having tons and tons of data in the cloud, especially when you have egress costs, right? You're pulling that data out. So agencies are rebalancing that a bit, trying to use as much of their on-prem data centers as possible for storage, and a lot of times expanding the compute capability in the cloud rather than the storage capability. I expect that trend to continue going forward. So it's really just again a growth of the hybrid model that a lot of industry sort of saw early on and expected. Red Hat being one of the organizations that doubled down on the concept, and we're just seeing that play out now.
When you started talking about agencies and multiple clouds. There's a lot of complexities with that. Is the one complexity is services, that whether it's software or infrastructure platform services, that maybe don't talk to each other as much as you hope they would? And that's where maybe an open source product like what you have at Red Hat could come into play, meaning, well, if Cloud A and Cloud B don't talk to each other, the data in transit makes it difficult, even with maybe APIs. That still drives a lot more complexity than maybe we should have at this point.
Yeah, there's I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, right? There's no the languages might be different, right, between these two different clouds, but there's like 1,000 different ways to put translational services in between to make sure that they can talk to each other. And so in the case of something like OpenShift, right? OpenShift's it's a Kubernetes platform. So it gives you the benefit of like moving applications and services between clouds and on-prem. It gives you that sort of like that flexibility and nimbleness of moving your applications around. But when it comes to actual comms that exist between those, I would say one of the more interesting capabilities is Scupper, which is an open source project. We actually, not to do too much of a pitch, but we actually just released a Red Hat version of that last week. It's called Interconnect. And it allows for layer 7 communications between Kubernetes clusters in general. So not just ours, like any Kubernetes cluster really. And the intention is to provide an application layer for communication among any cloud, on-prem services, whatever, and even edge devices too. So you might have like a very small device, maybe it's in a shed in the middle of the forest and it's doing monitoring of like waterways, something like that. And you need that data to be flowing without barrier to a cloud service. This is the kind of product that lets you do that.
I think that's really important because one of the big pieces that we're starting to get into as we talk about hybrid cloud and complexities is more innovation. What the cloud's enabling a lot of agencies to do is say, okay, what is in that art of the possible, not just in 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, but tomorrow or next week or next month. That innovation piece, is that the next step? A lot of agencies talk about the next step in their cloud journey is innovation.
Yeah, for sure. And what's driving that is in the past, you had physical limitations, right? You were limited by storage, you were limited by memory, you were limited by CPUs available to actually innovate with. And cloud removes all that, right? Like there's just no physical limitation. And a lot of the other tools I just mentioned, like Interconnect or Kubernetes, they remove the other IT barriers as well. And so that allows organizations to move up the value chain and really focus on what is the mission and pull away all of the IT requirements in general and focus directly on what you're trying to solve. And actually, I think the biggest barrier at that point is process. Like, how do you take innovation into the enterprise, right? How do you actually make it actionable? And I would say VA's like doing a really, really amazing job at this. The Office of the Innovation Ecosystem, they have a program designed for this called Pathfinder, where you essentially apply with your innovative idea. So any industry can apply, or industry vendor or whatever can apply, and then they take you on an actual path. Like you get like a Shark Tank type engagement with a number of the CHIOs, and those are chief health informatics officers who have like regional authority over informatics, and they meet with you. You tell them what you want to do. They grill you like crazy, and then coming out of that, you either have a project to work with or you don't. But if you do, there's an actual place to go to. So VA built Arches, which is a entire incubation space using synthetic patient data, so you can actually like test out your idea in a safe place without being exposed to patient data, without having to meet all the stringent security and privacy concerns that come with working with patient data. And then Arches is actually hosted on top of VA Platform One, which is a ubiquitous software factory that is capable of delivering those solutions directly into the workflows and operations at the actual VA medical centers. So in a lot of ways, they've taken the IT burden away and just focus entirely on what is the value chain. So you can ideas can compete, and the limitations aren't in the way. So in the past, a lot of times organizations would win like, big deals because they had they could navigate a specific, requirement from the VA, whether it was privacy or hardware or something like that. And they won on those merits as opposed to the quality of the actual, the actual idea. And at this point, we are able to focus entirely on what is the idea, what does it do for the patient, this is really exciting time to be involved in this.
Ben, we got about a minute or so left in this part of the Cloud Exchange. Let me just ask you on that innovation side. It's a great example of VA. Are you seeing also other agencies kind of step into that sandbox world, saying, hey, because we can have access to cloud services, we can be a little more, take smart risks, for lack of a better word. The risk aversion that the government's known for is maybe reducing, lessening.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Look at what's happening at HHS with they stood up ARPA, specifically to lean into really big ideas that need funding. I think HHS is taking is really embracing that risk, and giving researchers a space to operate, where they're not limited by, I don't want to say budget, but not limited by the traditional federal restraints that are in place, and actually letting the merits of the ideas carry the organization forward, and ultimately that affects all of us, right? It affects not just patients inside of VA, but like every patient in the United States and outside of the United States too.
And as you said, because you're no longer on premise, you're not limited from, oh, we only have so much CPU power, so much storage power, so much compute power. You actually have, it's not never ending because there's a cost, but you have some of those benefits that you can then really think of, okay, can this idea work in a bigger place? So I really appreciate you highlighting that piece, because a lot of people get lost in, are we platform or software? It's really that innovation that's changing the way agencies work.
Yeah.
Ben, unfortunately, we're out of time for this session of the Cloud Exchange. So let me thank you and thank my guest. Ben Cushing is the Chief Architect for Health and Life Sciences at Red Hat. Ben, thanks. I very much enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm Jason Miller, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more from the Cloud Exchange.